at the end of the day, YouTube is a business for a lot of people, and I understand, especially if you're a smaller creator competing in a sea of content. I understand the motivations, and there's I think it's a Charlie Munger quote of "Show me the incentives, and I'll tell you the outcomes." So I think it's definitely when I try not to be too harsh on the space, because I recognize that a lot of it is an issue of platform versus character. If you are trying to get a presence on YouTube, it's difficult to do so in a way that avoids sensationalizing stuff when there's a sea of content you have to compete with. But I do think finance is maybe one of the worst areas for sensationalism. I think them and maybe prank channels are kind of up there in terms of what they sensationalize content with. And I think it's a detriment to a lot of investors, because when you read books about the psychology of managing your finances, of money, you read about, it's good to ignore the noise and look through the short term and focus on the long term. Whereas these creators are often incentivized to highlight the short term and to doom post and highlight the concern and risks. And it's something that I've seen firsthand, where my own videos, probably more recently, especially the ones I've done the best are the ones that focus on near-term crises. So when you have the Silicon Valley Bank collapse in March of 2023, I think that was my best performing video for the year. And mind you, the video was trying to explain what had happened, but it gets people's attention, and because the viewers on YouTube, they're more drawn to those videos that talk about a crisis coming more than they're interested in videos that talk about calm seas ahead. There's kind of this incentive structure in place, and I do think finance is kind of one of the worst perpetrators out there of that kind of stuff.
How does that shape your? Like, you're making a piece of content, that it does well if it's negative or it's around a crisis. You also know that your audience want your view on that. How do you feel about that?
Well, that's the balance, right? I think it's not to say we shouldn't talk about issues and stuff. And I think what I will say is kind of a saving grace for a lot of creators is even the ones that are really popular, who will highlight these crises, they often end on the same note, which is like, it's not something you should be trading on. It's likely something that's going to pass. You should focus on the long term. So the videos do eventually tend to get there, but it's sort of upfront. How they hook you in is they take advantage of that. With my own videos, I'd love to say that I've steered away from that stuff, because I just I have that ability to not care about channel success and things like that. I wouldn't say it's in part because I work in the field. I have to keep in mind that I have clients who will watch the videos. I have fellow employees and even my boss to an extent. I don't think he actually watches my videos, but there's a chance that there are people who in my professional career will be watching a plain bagel video. So I need to consider that when I'm putting together the framing of a crisis. If I'm working as a portfolio manager and saying to a client, look, there's higher risk at the moment, but overall, we don't think there's reason for long-term concern. We think it's going to blow over. But I'm going on YouTube and I'm saying, bringing the alarm bell and talking about how this crisis is going to crash the whole U.S. market. There's a conflict there. So my strategy with YouTube is really just to align what I'm saying professionally with what I do on YouTube. And YouTube's always been an extension of my job in finance to an extent, where I sometimes cover topics just out of interest on the YouTube side, but a lot of what I cover on YouTube is stuff that I've looked into regardless from a career side. So because of that, I have benefited in that way in terms of reining in the sensationalism and stuff.
Not everyone's as morally sound or has the professional world like holding them accountable. And your series where you look through TikToks is probably the best example of some of the more extreme opinions that are out there, right?
Sure.
And
yeah.
Do you think overall that financial influencers are a net positive, or do you think that the world would be a better place without them? We lose a plain bagel, but we get rid of all the shite.
Yeah, I think if it would be a net benefit to get rid of them, I don't believe so. I think there are a lot of issues in the space, as there are with any kind of social media space. But I do think there are benefits. And, I think people laugh at the idea of getting information from TikTok on how to invest or even YouTube on what stocks to look into. But there was a CFA study that showed that, like, for Gen Z, especially younger generations, half of Gen Z individuals, roughly, at least in North America, get their information on investing from social media or inform part of their decisions from social media. And I think it was around a third of Gen Z investors started investing because of social media. So to me, that stands out as a clear benefit. And really the only reason why there's demand, I would say, for this type of content and finance on social media is because there have been failings on the other side in traditional finance. And I think that's kind of the nuanced perspective on it. Is there are issues in social media finance, but there are also a lot of issues with traditional finance. And so the benefits do sort of complement the failings of the other side in a way, where I think, say we don't have social media, I think you have less information that's freely available. You have more stuff that, call it pay gated in a way, where you only learn about ETFs and things like that by paying a professional versus being able to research that kind of stuff and learn more about it. And it's an accessibility thing as well, right? If you could only get financial advice or information through a professional, well, all of a sudden, a lot of people just can't afford that and will no longer have access to that. So there's a lot of room for improvement on the social media side. And I think, especially when it comes to like crypto scams and stuff, it's pretty blatant at times how bad it can get. And I think that unfortunately paints the whole area with a broad brush and makes everyone else look pretty bad. But I do think there are clear benefits. And I think if we can find that right balance of, the free share, freedom of information and sharing information while either holding people accountable for what they say or otherwise aligning incentives so that the best information is what gets circulated, I think we can, take what's been a benefit to some extent for investors and make it much better.
That was a short clip from our full interview with finance legend Richard Coffin from The Plain Bagel. You can check out the full interview right here.